Bought my land 15 years ago, 10 acres of quiet woodland bordered by a narrow river and a single bridge that connected me to civilization. That bridge wasn't much to look at, just concrete, steel, and a couple of fading warning signs, but it was mine. I maintained it myself, paid for its upkeep, and even had the legal paperwork showing it sat entirely within my property line. Back then, there was nothing around here but fields and forest. Then came the developers, the luxury golf courses, and the glittering $15 million neighborhood called Silver Pines Estates. At first, I didn't mind. Everyone's got a right to live somewhere. But the law that came with it, those people were a different story. They called themselves the Silver Pines Homeowners Association, but to me, they acted more like self-appointed royalty. The trouble started small. They'd send me letters about property uniformity and aesthetic harmony, as if my old red barn and rustic cabin were part of their gated showpiece. I ignored the letters. I wasn't a member, and my land predated their existence by decades. Still, they didn't like that my gravel driveway passed through their view of the river valley. Then last spring, I got a letter from the HOA president, a smug man named Gregory Lang, written on embossed paper with a golden logo. It said, "Greater than, Mr. Jameson, your property's bridge constitutes a visual and environmental hazard to the surrounding community. We request that you remove or relocate it within 30 days. Failure to comply may result in collective HOA action." I laughed out loud. Collective HOA action? What, were they going to stage a bake sale on my lawn? But then I started noticing trucks parked near the bridge at night, contractors, surveyors, and men in reflective vests who claimed to be checking runoff patterns. I asked to see permits. They didn't have any. I told them to get off my land. 2 days later, the bridge was gone. I woke up to the sound of grinding metal and shouting. When I ran out, half the structure was already collapsed into the river. Excavators stood on the opposite bank, their side, tearing away at the concrete with hydraulic claws. "Hey!" I screamed. "That's my bridge." One of the men shouted back, "Talk to the HOA, sir." We were told it was condemned. Condemned? By who? There hadn't been a single inspection. My bridge was solid, inspected personally by a county engineer just last year. I grabbed my camera and started taking pictures, documenting every second. When I tried to cross the remaining section, a guard from Silver Pines blocked me. "Private road, sir," he said flatly. "No access beyond this point." "No access." I growled. "That's my property line right there." He just pointed at a shiny new sign that read, "Silver Pines Estates, private access, residents only." They had built a brand new gate overnight, cutting off the only road in and out of my property. I was trapped unless I wanted to wade through the freezing river or hike 5 miles through rough terrain. That night, I sat by my fire, fuming. No car deliveries. No mail. No emergency access. My land had been turned into a prison, and the HOA didn't care. They wanted me gone, and I knew why. See, that bridge wasn't just a road. It was leverage. My property controlled the only access route into Silver Pines. When I bought the land, the county had allowed the developers to build their fancy subdivision only on the condition they maintained shared access through my easement. In short, they needed my bridge just as much as I needed it. And they had just destroyed it. By the next morning, I'd called the sheriff's office, the county road department, and even the local news. Nobody wanted to get involved. The HOA had lawyers, money, and influence. The deputy who came by looked sympathetic but helpless. "They're claiming the bridge was unsafe," he said. "Without an engineer's report, my hands are tied." "Then I'll get one," I told him. I spent the next week hiking into town with my laptop and paperwork. I found my old inspection report, the deed records, and the official boundary survey. It all proved the same thing. The bridge was 100% on my property, and the HOA had zero authority over it. When I confronted Gregory Lang at a public HOA meeting, he smirked. "Mr. Jameson, the structure was deteriorating. We acted in the interest of community safety." "Community safety?" I snapped. "You destroyed private infrastructure without a permit. That's criminal damage." He leaned back in his chair, oozing arrogance. "Then sue us. But you'll find it's hard to do much when you're landlocked. Maybe it's time you sold that outdated property. I'm sure one of our members would make you a fair offer." That was it. The entire plan was to force me to sell. They wanted my land to expand their luxury neighborhood, and they thought they could bully me out. They had no idea who they were dealing with. For 2 months, I worked quietly, saying nothing while they congratulated themselves. They didn't know I had friends in the county office, people who remembered the original road grants and easement terms. One of them, an old surveyor named Rick, told me something that made me smile for the first time in weeks. Technically, Tom, he said, your property includes the entire access path that Silver Pines uses to reach the county road. Every inch of it. They can't get in or out without crossing your land. I double-checked the maps. He was right. The HOA's own luxury bridge over the creek, the one they bragged about at community meetings, was built under a temporary easement that expired 3 years ago. And nobody renewed it. They had trapped me, but in doing so, they had trapped themselves. That night, I sat under the stars, looking at the half-collapsed ruins of my old bridge, and made a decision. They wanted a war. Fine. I'd give them one, by the book, by the law, and with every ounce of patience I had. Because if they thought cutting my bridge would push me out, they were about to find out what happens when the man they cornered decides to shut their road down too. The morning after I made my decision, I walked the full length of the old access road, the same one Silver Pines residents used every single day. SUVs, delivery trucks, golf carts, all of them rolled through my land without a thought. Not anymore. I spent the next week gathering documents, every survey map, deed, and easement agreement tied to this property. My lawyer, Cynthia Morales, nearly spit out her coffee when she saw the details. Wait, she said, flipping through the pages, you mean to tell me their entire neighborhood's access road is built on your private land? I nodded. That's right. Temporary easement expired 3 years ago. Never renewed. She gave me a slow grin. Then they're trespassing. Every single one of them. I'd never felt so vindicated. For months, the HOA had treated me like a squatter in my own home. Now the tables had turned. We drafted official notices and filed them with the county. Within a week, every Silver Pines homeowner received a letter. Greater than notice of access termination. Effective immediately, all non-permitted vehicles using the roadway through Parcel 17B will be considered trespassing. Property owner, Thomas Jameson. The next morning, chaos erupted. I watched from my porch as residents gathered near the new gate they'd built, shouting at each other, holding the letters. Their precious president, Gregory Lang, showed up in his Range Rover, red-faced and furious. He crossed the line onto my side, big mistake, and stormed up to my porch. You can't do this, he barked. That road is part of our neighborhood. I calmly handed him a copy of the county record. Actually, it's part of my property. You destroyed my bridge and trapped me here. I'm just returning the favor. He turned bright red. We'll sue you. I smiled. Good. Then discovery will show how your HOA illegally demolished a private bridge without a permit. Let's see how your insurance feels about that. For once, Gregory didn't have a comeback. He stormed off, muttering curses. By evening, I had the county install a temporary no trespassing barrier, legally sanctioned and approved. I also put up a sturdy metal gate with a keypad entry. Only emergency services and county personnel had access codes. When the residents realized they couldn't drive home without crossing my locked gate, the panic was almost poetic. Dozens of cars lined up at the edge of my land, honking and yelling. Some tried to call the sheriff, but when deputies arrived, they sided with me. Mr. Jameson's within his rights, the officer told them. The easement lapsed. You'll have to take it up in court. Court. That word made the HOA tremble. Because now, everything they'd done, from the demolition to the fake safety reports, would come to light. Within days, Silver Pines turned into a nightmare for its wealthy residents. Delivery trucks refused to enter. Trash piled up. Uber drivers canceled rides. Even the mail service suspended delivery until legal access was restored. Gregory called me 3 times, begging to negotiate. I ignored the first 2. On the third, I answered. Tom, he said, his voice strained, let's be reasonable. The residents are suffering. Surely there's a compromise. Funny, I said. That's what I asked when you destroyed my bridge. Silence. Then he tried to sweeten the deal. The HOA is willing to offer compensation. We'll rebuild your bridge and pay you for the inconvenience. Rebuild my bridge. I laughed. No thanks. You'll rebuild it exactly the way I say, and pay me monthly rent for every vehicle crossing my property." He sputtered. "Rent? Are you out of your mind?" "Not at all," I said. "You wanted me gone. Now you'll pay to stay." That night, my lawyer drafted a private access lease agreement, $2,500 per household, per year, for use of the road. Multiply that by 64 homes, and you get over $160,000 a year in my pocket. The HOA fought back, of course. They filed a lawsuit claiming community right-of-way, but the court quickly dismissed it after reviewing the deeds. Their attorneys tried appealing, but by then, the insurance companies had caught wind of the illegal demolition. Turns out, destroying a bridge that wasn't yours can void your coverage. Their HOA funds were frozen pending investigation. Gregory was forced to resign. But I wasn't done yet. With my newly reclaimed access and legal standing, I applied for a county grant to rebuild my bridge, bigger, stronger, and with private security cameras installed. When the construction crews arrived, the residents of Silver Pines had to watch from their side, helpless, as the bridge they'd once destroyed rose again under my control. It took 3 months, but when it was finished, it was beautiful. Reinforced steel, oak railings, stone pillars with my name carved into them. Greater than Jameson Bridge, private property. When the county certified it, I reopened the road, but only after every resident signed the new lease. No exceptions. Anyone who refused, their access stayed revoked. Most caved within days. A few tried to fight, but when they realized even school buses wouldn't pick up their kids without legal road access, they folded fast. By the end of the year, the once arrogant HOA was a shell of itself. Gregory sold his mansion at a loss and moved away. The new HOA board sent me a formal apology letter, signed and sealed. They even offered to name their main boulevard, Jameson Way, as a peace gesture. I declined. Instead, I took part of their rent payments and used it to fund a small community park, on my side of the river, open to the public. It became a favorite spot for local families who couldn't afford Silver Pines' ridiculous fees. Sometimes, I sit by the bridge at sunset, watching the light dance on the water. The air is quiet again, peaceful, the way it used to be before greed tried to buy its way through my land. They thought cutting my bridge would force me out. But in the end, it only built mine stronger, and theirs weaker. And as for me, I didn't just rebuild a bridge. I built a boundary they'll never cross again.